Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia Wilson, and I welcome you all to Kiwi Tech's webinar today on Web3. What is it and why it matters? In this webinar, we aim to clear all your doubts and apprehensions about this buzzword in the technology world, Web3. From highlighting existing use cases of the technology to the future impact it may have on traditional businesses, our speaker will walk you through everything you need to know about Web3. Before we kickstart with the workshop, I'd like to invite Himanshu Nangia, Director, Strategic Partnerships, Kiwi Tech, to give a quick overview of the company and Web3. Over to you, Himanshu.
Hello, everyone. It is an honor to have you all here and giving us a chance to present this Web3, introducing Web3 with you. And it's an honor for me to actually present Kiwi Tech in front of you. So over the past 1.2 decades, basically, we at Kiwi Tech have been helping companies with robust ecosystem that helps companies become technology superior and gain competitive advantage. With headquartered in Washington DC and a corporate office in New York, scaled Kiwi Tech to 600 strong engineers experienced into emerging technology across different industries. As a strategic partner, to client across 15 plus industries, we have helped deliver business goals, goals and drive technology-led transformation applications. We actually have spent, 12 plus years of, overall, we have gained actually 12 plus years of experience, delivering all these technology advanced applications to all our clients, scale this team to 600 plus engineers with our headquarters in, Washington, DC and New York. Have delivered close to 1,500 plus complex applications. Overall, it is close to 2,400 plus. Why complex? Because we have been doing it on emerging technology, from past 6-7 years, which has actually helped us deliver more than 1,500 plus complex application to our partners across the 4 continents. As we all know, Web3 powered by blockchain is reshaping the technology and tech world. And organizations around the world are becoming serious and getting aware and finding their own ways of joining the race of Web3 transformation while promoting transparency, efficiency, and security. With such forward thinking and to provide best possible technology support, Kiwi Tech also has launched our Web Center of Excellence group to harness the potential of blockchain and distributed ledger technology to different industries. And for each of our clients, helping them overcome their unique challenges to realize their strategic, vision. In terms of blockchain capabilities, we have been helping, startups with providing consulting services and engineering services. In terms of consulting services, we have been helping finding them use cases because most of the technologies, most of the startups coming our way are definitely trying to, embark their feet into Web3, race, but they still are not aware of, how they actually move forward with, Web3 sort of thing. Although they have Web2 solutions built on Web2, but definitely wants to actually, cope up with the race and you'll be there with the advancement of technology which is happening around the world. We have been helping startups with finding out of startups and companies finding and figuring out, what could be the best architecture for them by assessing their current architecture and suggesting them what could be the best possible way for, making the alteration so that they could actually hit the ground running without reinventing the wheel right from the beginning. We have even been helping, startups finding out the right platforms so that, they are not just thinking of launching the entire set of their business onto the Web3, but strategically thinking about what could be the best platform through which they could actually hit the ground running. And we definitely helping them with defining the functional and technology roadmap. In terms of engineering services, as I said, we have, 600 plus people, technologically advanced, in terms of providing services for emerging technology. So we have been helping startups with delivering the proof of concepts because Web3 being new in the system, being new in the, in the industry, most of the companies, most of the startups are still not aware of, what all concept they should be launching this application with or how Web3 could actually help them grow their business. So helping them deliver the POCs, proof of concepts. We have capability of developing decentralized applications, especially into the few industries such as decentralized finance is one of the application, one of the industry, one of the category we have been heavily delivering the application. We have been helping developing the NFT marketplace. We have even helping startups realize how they can actually develop tokens and smart contracts. And of course, we even helping them understand, if private or public blockchain could be the solution to move forward. Empowering NFT ecosystem, we definitely have developed, kind of NFT applications and helping startups, with complete NFT lifecycle management, right from the beginning of, creation of any NFT-based application NFTs, and buying or selling of the and ownership transfer through this platform. In terms of blockchain, have developed expertise working on Ethereum, Algorand, Polkadot, and in fact, have developed started working on Cardano as well. We have been delivering end-to-end solutions when it comes to NFT marketplace, because we completely understand this thing that anyone coming our way would definitely need this kind of assistance, wherein they just want us to implement something, and there should be someone who could actually guide them towards taking right from their idea, right from the beginning, and deliver it to the end. So we have developed custom NFT smart contract team, exclusive team, which is heavily working on these kind of projects. In terms of different industries, as I said, we have delivered solutions for 15 plus industries. So here are few industries which I would like to highlight. We have done applications for healthcare industry. We have been doing applications for financial service industries, and we definitely have been helping companies from insurance domain to achieve the Web3 specific transformation, if whatever they are actually planning to implement. And then, of course, in real estate, fashion, retail, and media are the upcoming industries. We have been working with startups and companies which are transforming their existing platform to the from Web 2 to Web 3. From our Web 3 stack, we definitely have expertise working on MetaMask. We have tested or done some POCs using R3 Corda as well. We have expertise working on Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Indy, and from L1 scaling solution standpoint, Ethereum being one of the primary blockchain platform. So we have developed we have capacity to develop application on top of Ethereum based L1 frameworks, and taking it to the Polygon, Algorand, and Palm as well. And in terms of technology, in terms of languages, we definitely can actually support Solidity, Rust, and have been heavily working on many applications using Python as well. And in terms of SDKs, Algorand and WGSs are a couple of few SDKs that we can actually support the application development with. Now, how to find if a blockchain is right for you? So you will have to actually be considerate about if a blockchain is right solution for your business, because not every business needs a blockchain immediately. But yes, you will have to figure out if a particular blockchain, or if transforming from Web 2 to Web 3 would actually be of any imminent need for your business or not. So how you can actually go about it is there are certain parameters which can actually help you understand if is blockchain is right for you. If it is you need something that could be programmed, that is distributed, that is secure, immutable, of course, anonymous, timestamped, and unanimous. If you are actually planning of moving from Web 2 to Web 3, and if your business needs, and especially from data centric standpoint, qualifies for all these parameters, then definitely blockchain is something you can actually think of. And we at Kivity can actually develop and can guide even for moving from Web 2 to Web 3. Not moving from Web 2 to Web 3, but enhancing your Web 2 to Web 3 level. Now, how you can actually transition from Web 2 to Web 3? Web 2 applications have been developed using these kind of these are a few samples of Web 2 applications. And when it comes to Web 3, so there have been proven results in the market that browsers have been replaced by Brave, which is a Web 3 application. And then storage, we used to use Dropbox, we used to use Google storage, which have been I would not say completely replaced, but their technology have been advanced enough that technological advancement have happened that have enabled them to store or to alter their overall architecture to some Web3 enabled databases and storage. Skype, Skype is kind of not replaced basically, but there is an alternate which is developed on Web3 as well, which is Experty. So these are few examples of Web2 applications and their alternatives in Web3 world. So how we actually can go about it is, and especially at Kivitech, what we do not actually simply recommend you which blockchain or why you should actually, go about, transforming your Web2 to Web3. But this is overall a process wherein we actually take it from a discovery phase where an entire team would be sitting with you, working with you, identifying what all areas of your application should be transformed to Web2 from Web3. And then accordingly, we design a strategy to help you attain what we are trying to do. And it is not about developing something in one go, but we would be segregating things into small chunks so that your existing Web2 applications are not even, or the users who are actually using your Web2 applications are not getting impacted with the new implementation. And accordingly, we implement things in, with proof of concepts and doing pilots. And after proving or after getting the right results from those POCs and pilots, we implement, such solutions. And of course, from support perspective, once everything is done, everything is developed, we actually continue providing the support in terms of, by providing managed services, by automating the implementation of application at your client spaces as well, and by training your existing staff. Now, this is a very high level implementation of how things could be implemented into a blockchain space. I'll let Sahil explain it when he would be explaining about what all things we should be considering about blockchain. So, but this is a high level overview of how different things are identified and what all things out of the overall architecture should be considered from transformation into a Web3 world. So overall development process that we have at Kivitech here is we basically start with gathering the requirement. We understand what all things you guys need, what all things a business would need in their short and long term vision basically. And then based on that, we design a high level plan of what all things we would be releasing on time to time basis. And then we start the iteration with planning stories and tasks. We design the overall stories, and if it is required, we can actually refine the overall process to accommodate the priority deadlines, priority items that needs to be released, and accordingly we develop. So it is a very agile process that we follow here. And we actually use Scrum roles wherein different people like product owners, Scrum leads, Scrum team members, stakeholders, and users participates to ensure the overall process that we have presented here is complying with the expectation of a solid and robust application that needs to be released after a particular timeline. So thank you. I'll let Natalia take the lead here and introduce Sahil on the screen.
All right, thank you, team. Now I'd like to invite Sahil Luthra, Director, Engineering and Blockchain Practice, Kivitech, to take the floor away and start with the webinar. Over to you, Sahil.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Sahil, and I'm going to be presenting a talk on the topic Web3, what it is and why it matters. The goal of this talk essentially is to really decode this term for you all, demystify the term, and really find out why this term is getting all the attention, why it's getting the momentum, why the tech companies are taking note of it. And I'd really like to, I hope I can do some justice, and by the end of this talk, you have some understanding of this term if you don't already, and you can decide yourself, whether it is just a buzzword or hype, or it's truly a solid step towards the evolution. So before we begin, a little bit about myself. I'm a Director of Engineering and Blockchain Practice at Kivitech. Also heading the Center of Excellence at Kivitech, where I'm really fortunate enough to work with a lot of bright minds here who love exploring, breadth-wise and depth-wise all the emerging technologies. Overall, I have 15 plus years of experience working in a variety of projects spanning across domains and technology stacks. And with Kivitech, it's been around 5 years of association. And to be honest, it's been an amazing journey so far, because I'm, in these 5 years, I got a lot of opportunities working really close with startups who some of them have really, exciting and great visions. And it's really a pride to be part of a journey where, we could translate their vision into real life. So a quick review of, what the talk is going to be about today. So, before we go understand what Web3 is, it's good to know where we are coming from, what was preceding before Web3. So to do that, we'll go into the evolution of Web, what is Web 1, 2, and later on what is Web 3. Then we'll dig deeper, understand the core ideas of Web3, understand, what are the key technologies that are powering it, why it is important, what are the few other technology buzzwords that are associated with Web3. And then to give a fair perspective, we'll not just talk about the positives, we'll also look at some of the limitations and challenges that Web3 has, also some of the criticism it has faced with, in recent times. And then, towards the end, we'll also see where in this evolution we are and where we are actually heading towards. And then we'll summarize the talk and open up for questions. So Web3, if you explore the net, you'll find a lot of people trying to explain the term in their own words. But really, the term itself was coined by a person called Gavin Wood, who's also the co-founder of Ethereum. And down shortly after releasing Ethereum 2014, he coined this term. And he had a vision, but if you see a lot of people trying to explain the term, they'll try and explain it in different ways. And but there is a common theme in every definition, which if you see the bottom of the slide in the bold, it says essentially a variety of ideas where all of them are pointing towards a single direction, where the goal is to eliminate the big middlemen of the internet. And as we proceed in this talk, we'll know, what the middlemen, what I mean by the middlemen, and then how Web3 proposes to boot them out. So here are a few interesting definitions that that will help you understand or get an overview first of all. So Web3 is the internet owned by the builders or the application creators, the end users, and essentially it is orchestrated. The communication is orchestrated by use of tokens in the world of Web3. It's a world where the end users are in control as opposed to the tech giants which are providing the systems. And when I say they're in control of the data that they own, right? And the programs that manage the data, not just the programs, also the systems that are hosting the program. So end to end, from the data to the programs managing the data to the systems hosting the data, users are in control of all of these aspects. They are a partial owner in the system. So the theme of Web3 essentially is freedom, democracy, and ownership. And another interesting definition, which I found on one of the articles, it's basically Web3 is a reaction to social networks, who are today, amassing a lot of control by, they take advantage of all the user-generated content and monetize it and for their own benefits. And sometimes also, not being able to keep it secure. Right. So like I said, before we understand what Web3 is, let's first understand where we're coming from. What was Web1? So World Wide Web 1, in late 80s or early 90s, World Wide Web was found by Tim Berners-Lee, who was an English scientist. And he's really the founder of World Wide Web. And he's the one who developed the foundations of the web that we know today, like HTML, HTTP protocol, the browser, the first server, first website, to prove the entire proof of concept. And shortly after that, when the technology was made available to the general public, we saw a lot of websites springing up in a very short span of time, right? But so if you have to really summarize this particular phase of the Web 1, you could say this is the phase where we saw dial-up modems, the basic static web pages. We saw the excitement of sending emails. And essentially what the web was trying to do in this time was they were replicating the existing media that was already out there. There were already magazines or newspapers or newsletters being distributed in a physical fashion. But during this phase, a lot of websites, which were essentially, the static websites, started, replicating all of this in a web world. So in this case, there were only few contributors or the content creators that were creating the content, but most of the users were consumers of this information. We could summarize this particular phase as like a read-only phase, where most of the users were just, ingesting the information that is already out. Then came Web 2, mid 2000s, and this is the internet that we know as of today. This is the internet which saw the advancements in communication, the advancements in internet access, access not in terms of just geographically, where people can connect to anybody else from anywhere in the world, but also using any kind of device. So this is the decade that we're going through that we could call like it's a network effect where not just like in Web 1, we were just consuming. In this case, because of the communication and accessibility enhancements, it's encouraged the people to also, create the content and share. So as opposed to just reading in the first phase, here we're also, writing or contributing back to the news. And this is, you've seen this validation of this by the birth of the social media communities, sharing the user-generated content, streaming media towards the end of the decade, aggregate business models. But with Web 2, what came to surface is an issue of trust, basically. So now that people across the internet could interact with each other, share and exchange communication and value, they needed somebody to build the trust between both the ends of the users. So this is a gap that was leveraged by the tech giants like Facebook, Google, Twitter, who essentially created their platforms in an attempt to bridge the trust gap, so that people could exchange values and communication. But in return, they started charging fees, and eventually it has led to a situation where it has led to a centralization of not just the data but also control. These giants are getting more and more powerful. They're building proprietary and closed protocols. And what users are now, relegated to is basically they are creating content on these platforms, but they don't own the content that they created. And it is these platforms or the centralized authorities that are benefiting from that. And the users are basically just toiling on the properties owned by these giant corporations. And this is exactly what led to the vision or the need that gave birth to the idea of Web3, which we can categorize or call it as a brave new world, because it is proposing a seismic shift, shift from relying on trusting few centralized authorities and taking the control back, and shifts to end users where they are in they are the one in control, they are the one owning their data, and they call the shots here. And they're not just mere consumers where just for the sake of few likes or thumbs ups or hearts on the platform, they generate content that everybody else would, the platforms would monetize. But truly to understand what Web 2 and Web 3, how they are different, I'd like to share an interesting story which I heard in the talk, and it's called the naked story. Um, so imagine a world where you don't own anything, you're completely naked, and there's a lot of hotels in the city in this world. And when you check into this one of the hotels, you're provided clothes for yourself. You're also provided some raw material, where using this raw material now you could create your own assets or anything that you want to create out of that. But the moment you check out from the hotel, you have to give everything back to the hotel, submit everything back, including your clothes. So the moment you check out, you're naked again. You go to another hotel, you'll have to start all over again. Go again and get everything, the clothes. So essentially, if you see in this case, the control is with the hotels, which is an analogy of really the tech giants in today's world. And what Web3 wants is to take the control away from these centralized authorities and bring it back, or who are also called intermediaries. Now I think we can understand what I meant by intermediaries in the initial slide when I mentioned that. So what Web3 is proposing it, put these intermediaries out and bring the power back to the end users. So, why these intermediaries were there in the first place? Because they were essentially filling the trust gap, right? So if we take them out of the equation, who fills the trust gap? What happens to it? So what Web3 proposes is, replace these intermediaries and have a really open, transparent, and democratized consensus mechanism, right? And instead of a single authority, it's the democracy, the consensus between all the participants of the peer-to-peer network that decide, that are the decision-making bodies. Right? So in essence, what it means is, in Web 1, you were only reading. Web 2 gave you the power of writing, also contributing back. What Web 3 is doing is, in addition to read and write, you also get to own the data, own the programs, own the infrastructure, everything. And in his own words, by Gavin Wood, if you see the definition, what he was proposing was, Web3 is an alternative vision of Web, where instead of a single service provider or maybe a concentrated service providers, this is a world where it's a peer-to-peer world where a lot of users are there, and these peers contribute to an ultimate Uber service by contributing like a slice of service on their from their half. And there are some algorithms running behind this service, which is based on the consensus and democracy that makes the regulations in this particular. So the core ideas, and before we look at the core ideas, at its core, if you really summarize Web3, you'll see it is being powered by blockchains or distributed ledger technologies, cryptocurrencies and NFTs to facilitate the transactions. Through these core technologies is Web3 trying to achieve what it is trying to, what the vision is. So if you see the core ideas, it's a trustless world where instead of relying on some third parties, there are incentives in this peer-to-peer network where everybody in a collective manner makes the decision. You don't have to trust on anything. It's the collective algorithm that everybody contributes to that creates the factor of trust in this case. And it's a completely decentralized world where the data or anything for that matter is not stored in a single location or not owned by a single authority, but it is distributed, and the ownership is there with everybody. Everybody has a copy of data in this world. It's a permissionless world where you're not at the mercy of some regulatory bodies or central authorities again to let you into the platform, or they can boot you out. But as opposed to that, in the world of Web3, nobody can get excluded. It's an equal access to all, as long as you play by the rules of the centralized environment that is running the network. And it is powered by the native payments, which is the cryptocurrency for transacting. So here's a quick summary from an end user's perspective, and I think I've repeated myself a lot of times, but one more time. So Web 1 was the world of just consuming, just reading the information from an end user perspective. Web 2 is when not just consuming, they could also create the content. And Web 3 is consume, create, and also get to own the content. Right. So why it is important? What are the benefits of Web3? Why should we be concerned about it? So here are a few things that will help clarify this. Ownership is one of the areas. Who wouldn't like to own the data or the content that they're creating on the internet and monetize it? Web3 gives you that opportunity to get the ownership of your digital asset in an unprecedented way. It provides you identity. In this world of Web3, what you do is you create an account on your own on a blockchain. And this is the only single account that you can now take and using this authenticate yourself or connect to any platform. It will have to honor that. And this is done in a very secure, censorship-resistant, and anonymous manner. It offers you transparency, obviously, because it's a distributed ledger, which means who all are participants in this network. They have a copy of data. They can look at the immutable record of transactions in the network. So it's completely open to anybody to actually go and audit it. Also, it offers you security because blockchain leverages the really advanced form of cryptography, and that helps you secure transactions, and it helps you keep your identity secure. It's censorship resistance, like I mentioned earlier, where everybody can join the network. You can't be denied access based on your location or any realm that platform thinks of. it's open to all. It is boosted or powered by native payments, like I mentioned. You don't have to trust on banks or any other payment processors or any third parties for that matter. There is a native payment which is part of the network that you could leverage to transact, to send money, things like that. It also advocates, peer-to-peer governance, which means it also gives you avenues where you could create organizations that are decentralized and autonomous. These are organizations that leverage smart contracts, which we'll explain later, as the backbone, and the users own basically tokens on the network, and they can vote for all the decisions that have to be made in the peer-to-peer organization. Web3 also offers you seamless service, because it's a decentralized world. There's multiple copies of data throughout the network. Everything has a copy. There is no chance the service can go down because if one node goes down, you have the rest of the nodes serving you seamless service. In terms of accessibility, it doesn't matter where you're located, which device you're using. You don't really need to depend on any middleman, and the information is available from friction. Right. So with these benefits are quite evident, why Web3 is important. But what really is powering Web3? So, like I said, it's the blockchain, the DLT, and the tokens that are really powering the Web3. But there are a lot of there's a long list of terms that are associated with Web3, and I don't think I can go through all of them. But the few ones, the few that I felt important, I tried to put them here, and I will try and explain at least from an overview perspective. So related to Web3, there are DLT and blockchains. Blockchains, if you already do not know, they are essentially a way of bookkeeping where there are multiple computers part of a peer-to-peer network. And they all collectively make the decisions and also keep a copy of data, duplicate copy of data, all of it. That's what in essence, a blockchain DLT is. Then cryptocurrency, like I mentioned, this is the medium of exchange on a blockchain network, and it really leverages cryptography to secure all kind of transactions that are making. It also helps you secure your identity. NFTs, something that everybody has heard today, unless you're living in a cave. These are like cryptocurrencies, but the difference being they have a uniqueness factor tied. So they are not, they cannot be exchanged at equivalency like fungible tokens. And they could be used to represent anything that is there out in the real world, whether it is a token or identity or vision to enter somewhere. So there's a variety of use cases can be used for. Then finally, crypto wallets. These are they do not store the assets or cryptocurrencies or NFTs within them, but they are a way for you to authenticate yourself on a network because it holds your private key, kind of a password. And essentially, using the crypto wallet, you connect to a particular network, and it'll then make it visible to you whatever you're owning on that network. So that's what the crypto wallet is. It's a store of your private keys, and it lets you connect with a decentralized network. dApps, something everybody would have heard nowadays. These are the decentralized application. So unlike normal Web2 application, these are the applications that are powered by blockchain or a DLT in the backend. Front end is similar to what in the Web2 world. And smart contracts, these are digital contracts or agreements that are capable of executing on their own and do not rely on anybody else to enforce them. DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organization, like I mentioned earlier, these are community-led entities where there's no central authority, and there is a smart contract or a digital contract at the core of it, which helps regulate this particular organization, and it's done in a very autonomous and transparent manner. And whoever are the participants of this network can call the shots or can vote, depending upon how many tokens they want this particular organization. And then DeFi, decentralized finance. It's an umbrella term which contains basically uh, all the financial instruments that you would see in the fintech world today, all the services provided by brokerages, exchanges, banks, lending platforms. Instead of relying on authorities like credit card providers or banks or card issuers, now it's the network that it's a decentralized network that creates the rules. It's the user that pump in the money into this network. It's the same money that eventually reaches the other end users. So here's a you can call it a technical bit, but still I think a little bit technical to help you some picture of what Web3 application looks like in mind. So on the left-hand side, you see how a typical Web2 application is. It has a front end, which is the big box out there. It talks to the back end, which is then supported by a database. But all this is done in a centralized manner. Some company is hosting this, and they can anytime pull the plug out for whatever reason. On the right-hand side, if you look at the image, it's the same kind of front end, but what is supporting it in the backend is essentially the blockchain or a DLT. So the backend and the database, which is owned by a single entity, is replaced by a blockchain, which is hosted collectively by an entire network of participants. Here is another closer look where it's the same front end talking to the blockchain, but you'll see some new blocks in this diagram. And towards the right, if you see the diamond, which is the signer, is the wallet I was talking about. So the users do not have to log in using some fields like we do today in text boxes in the Web2 world, but using the the crypto wallets like MetaMask, they can authenticate themselves, and then once they authenticate, they are let into the application, which is in the backend powered by a blockchain, and then this particular application also leverages, if you see a purple box outside towards the right bottom, which is called the IPFS, another decentralized network where instead of putting all the user data on the blockchain itself, what you're doing on the blockchain, which is very expensive in terms of storage. What you're doing is you're storing your data actually on IPFS, another decentralized network, but just the pointers to that data references is what you're saving on the blockchain. This is how a very simplified, typical Web3 application looks like. So like I promised, we'll not just talk about the positives, we'll also take a look at the limitations. And I look at the limitations in a positive manner because I see this as an evolution, and it's always good to know where you're lacking, and because you know where you're lacking, you build on that and improve further. So, let's take a look at the limitations. So user experience, since blockchain or other related technologies are relatively new and a little bit complicated to understand, both for end users and the developers. So it's really a hurdle to adoption to some extent, where you have to go through this education and steps and training to be able to both develop it or use an application. Accessibility. So it's not entirely seamless today, where just in the browser you have the essential tools to simply connect to a Web3 application and start from there. You still need to. There are ways where you need to connect a wallet to the browser or the Web3 site, and you need to be aware of what private key is, how to secure it, what are the different wallets depending on which network you're trying to connect. So different wallets, different networks. So there is some accessibility challenges there, which still needs to be ironed out. Then scalability, something as users in this decade, which they've gotten used to speed of light. We don't have patience to run really seamless, really quick, with excellent user experience. But in the world of Web3, which is backed by DLT, it's a decentralized network behind the scenes, which means a lot of parties, and the data has to be really broadcasted to all, validated by all, and then it is accepted in the network, which means there are some it's more time taking and hence the transaction is slow. So regulation is also not that simple in case of Web3 because even though you are anonymous, you still have an identity in form of the wallet address that you have. So in this world of Web3, we can still tie down all the transactions to that particular address on the blockchain. So we know who the person is, but it's a pseudonymity where we know who the identity is, but to which real user in the world it maps to, we do not know. So it really opened doors for money laundering and some financing for wrongdoings. And since it's a decentralized world, so an application could span over multiple geographical areas, different countries, which will have different types of jurisdictions. So to really have that maturity to create rules that spans across all these geographical boundaries, it's a challenge. So the regulators are, I think, at the same time when they're trying to become aware, understand what the Web3 is, they are also facing these challenges, and it will take some time where once we reach that stage where the regulation becomes another limitation, which I also show as a benefit, I think it's both benefit also and kind of a threat, because in this case, you are the owner of the identity. So with greater power of control comes greater responsibility. You need to be really aware of how to, in a secured fashion, manage your keys and what you are, when you're creating application, what is it that you're putting out there on the blockchain, because I'm specifically talking about public blockchain in this case. So you have to be really careful about what you're putting on the blockchain, because it's a public blockchain and everything is visible to everybody. So that does open doors for some if you're not careful in modeling the application. And this is also another popular limitation that everybody is aware of. Few of the popular blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum so far are really large consumers of energy and have very large carbon footprint. Because inherently they are backed by a consensus mechanism which is called proof of work, which consumes a lot of energy behind the scenes, and it's a whole topic in itself. So there is definitely that challenge where we would say there are the amount of energy blockchain network like this consumes would sometimes equivalent to entire countries worth of energy spent. And there are alternatives like alternate proof of alternate consensus mechanisms like proof of stake, but they also come with their own challenges where there are some inequity issues. Because proof of stake, whoever is putting more money or cryptocurrency at stake is getting more power. So if you have more power, you can keep on you call the shots on the network. Eventually, you can actually it can lead to an inequity in this case. So there's some work around that still needs to be done. And security. So since this is a relatively new world, there are a lot of model designs, there's evolving standards out there, which means people are not aware of the best practices in a lot of cases, and leads to areas where if smart contracts are not done or developed in more in a secured fashion, leads to some hacks out there. Few of the examples would be like cryptojacking and rough codes and ice fishing, where the threat actors would sometimes install the mining software on your machine, or they'll announce some very attracting schemes and collect all the monies through ICOs and then run away, which is what the rug pull is. And in some cases, they'll also fool the users in proving transactions, and they can take control of your wallets or the private. Essentially, they take all the crypto assets. And finally, DAOs, which are those collectively owned organizations. Their code is a lot of the code in Web3 is open source, so it's open for there are some security challenges. So these are a few popular criticisms that Web3 is. Popular one is by Jack Dorsey, who is the Twitter founder. And according to his comment that you can see here, what he's saying is Web3. It's not the end users who are really owning Web3. It's just a label out there, but behind the scenes, it's the venture capitalists and the LPs who are calling the shots. So what I would say to this particular comment is, it's not completely invalid because essentially it's a protocol and it really depends how you leverage it, how you implement it in your particular solution. And there are a lot of illegitimate protocols which are kind of compromising the core ideas of Web3 in favor of speed or ease or market worthiness. But then there are some solid networks like Bitcoin, Ethereum also that do hold their grounds in this fashion and do not sacrifice all these core principles of Web3. So it really depends how you implement. So, and even in the worst case scenario, even if it is being owned by the venture capitalists, but in this kind of a system, there are rules embedded in smart contracts, which are transparent and kind of owned by community. And as opposed to the world of Web2, where the central authorities can change the rule anytime, in this case, it can't be done just like that. They can't mutate the rules just like that. That benefit is still there even in worst case. Here's another one by Signals, which is communication application Signals founder Moxie. And what he's saying is, Web3 doesn't stand alone yet, and it does depend upon centralized platform. I kind of agree with him because even if you are leveraging, let's say, Ethereum network behind the scenes, there are cases where you would, to be able to become part of these networks, you will create a node, and to create a node which is an EVM compatible, or the node that runs the Ethereum software, you will have to go to a centralized authority like in Fura. And so there is this layer of centralized authorities or Web2 guys that through which you are accessing Web3 today. So the criticism does hold some truth to it. And what Mox is really proposing is, as the idea of Web3 is through decentralization, and you can't expect the end users, all of the end users who are using applications to go and provision servers, become part of the networks just to use the applications. So, instead of focusing on distributing the infrastructure and creating your nodes, we should rather focus on advancing the cryptography in a way where the end user could actually, without having to spend servers, still be part of the network. So where are we in this entire journey? So for a significant number of years, it's the Web3 concepts. It's been all theoretical, but it has gained momentum ever since we saw NFTs and digital assets that have become really popular. And in this journey, what we are going through is, you can call what we're going through is one of the benefits today we can see is for creators. This is a creators economy where they can really leverage NFTs and create their content and do not depend upon the gatekeepers or middlemen, monetize without giving significant cuts to. It has opened, Web3 has opened avenues for game creators and players, where as a game creator, you could open up your games where people could create digital assets, monetize those, sell them in marketplaces, take their assets and go to different platforms. So it is really giving a boost to the gaming economy as well. DeFi world, where if you have to today do transactions, lending, borrowing, going to exchanges, to banks, there is a significant hurdle that you need to cross in terms of the formality you need to do to be accepted, in terms of the time, in terms of the cost. And what Web3 has paved the way for is a decentralized way where you can see the benefits of low cost, instantaneous transfers, borderless transactions, peer-to-peer transfers without really depending on these financial institutions. And, there are a lot of DAOs, like Decentraland or other examples, which are run in a decentralized manner as nobody's as a single group or as central authorities owning this. It's the users who have purchased the tokens, become a member of the DAO and running the tokens. So we are seeing all this in today's world already. So one of the questions which I also had while I was doing the research in this, you may also have. So does all this mean like will eventually Web3 put out Web2 applications and completely replace Web2? And from what I could gather, I don't think that will be the case. In my opinion, it'll stay and it'll actually operate alongside Web2. It's not going to replace it. And in fact, you would see a lot of Web2 companies are already realizing the importance of Web3 ideas and are investing in those. For example, Twitter is focusing on some Web3 concepts where it's researching into some features where as a user, you could, using your blockchain account, you could eventually connect to the network and be able to trade using that. And Facebook, which is rebranded itself as Meta, is trying to create a metaverse, and which, if you see the core principles behind that, is interoperability for the users to be able to create content, create avatars and assets, take them with when they log out and use those assets. They can jump from network to network. So Facebook is also kind of so, and then let's take a look at what we will see more and more in coming years, because as I said, there are positives, there are limitations, there's going to be evolution. But what I can say is a few things will become more and more important in the coming months. The use cases will become more mature. I think the kind of knowledge I have based on that, I would say a lot of these NFT use cases that are popular out there are really this first generation of use cases. And in the coming months and years, we'll really see more and more mature cases. The wallets will become more and more important. They will basically be the way where you will, they'll be your digital identity. This is the mechanism through which you will prove your identity. And it will allow you to go from a network to network, application to application, and take your data along with you. And as the end users become more and more powerful, they get to own their data, they'll be able to monetize, sell it without actually letting others leverage that. And the reliance on Web2 platforms will reduce, and there will be more and more independence. See more and more Web3 concepts out there, more transparency, more inclusivity, more interoperability. Right. Finally, to summarize, Web3, even if it sounds like a far-fetched set of ideas, but I think still have some really sound fundamentals. I'm one of the people who really believe in the fact that it is going to be will also disrupt a lot of ideas that are out there in the world. All right. Thanks for your patience. You can open up for questions.
Thank you so much, Sahil, for the insight. We already have questions for you. So first is, do you see a shift in way games, albums, and movies get funded with Web3? Are there any current examples you have seen?
Yeah, definitely there are games where, if you have heard a term called play to earn, which are leveraging Web3, where, as a users, you get to own the tokens, you get to create, like I mentioned, some assets, and then you get to, in the same platform, put them out on the marketplaces and earn from it. And in terms of examples, I can share it over an email if you can show me.
All right. So the another question is, can you give us real life examples where Web3 is used?
I think we went through a lot of them, whether it is NFT marketplaces, whether it is the games. So in terms of marketplaces, if you've heard of OpenSea, Rarible, these are the marketplaces where as creators you can go create assets and sell it to others or trade with others. There are games like I mentioned, and this is all public. In terms of private blockchains, also there are enterprises who can come together and join a private network and in a decentralized manner operate. So there are a lot of examples out there. And financial institutions are leveraging that, banks are doing that, money lending networks, exchanges, there's a lot of that.
Okay, so next one is, how can Web3 be useful in healthcare?
Okay, different ways. Today, so let's say I'm going to a hospital, I go sign up there, provide my records, but they own my data. If there is a way where you could encrypt it and put it out on a peer-to-peer network, and only you through your key can decrypt it, but you are the one who can take it and you can decide where to share. So you don't have to depend upon any hospital or any other organization for that matter. It goes with you, you own it. And also, for cases like where insurance claims in case of medical assistance when you're taking, some of those processes are very cumbersome, take time, a lot of cost involved in it. And because there's a lot of reconciliation needed in those scenarios. And if you leverage blockchain, all the parties who are in the decision making of reconciliation from point start to the end, who are calling the shots to approve your insurance claim, if they can become a part of network, the reconciliation becomes really fast, cost efficient. So that's how we can do this.
Okay, so the last one would be Web3 and Metaverse. How do they intersect?
In a very simple layman terms, I would say metaverse is like a face of blockchain because essentially it's a virtual world which is leveraging AR and VR, but all the assets in the metaverse, which are kind of fungible tokens or NFTs, which is what behind the scenes leveraging blockchain indeed. So metaverse is kind of an application leveraging Web3.
All right. So thank you so much again for the responses as well. So we have recently introduced our referral program at KiwiTech. This program rewards anyone who contributes to fruitful introduction to our company. Over the years, we have built this robust ecosystem of startups with the help of your trust and subsequent referrals. We realize it is time we give due credit to this trust through our referral program incentives. So if you want to know someone looking for tech development support to scale, join our referral program and follow the mentioned steps, show how on your screens, or visit our website to learn more. Now, I'd like to close the webinar by thanking the speaker and all the guests who registered for this today. I hope that the webinar was informative and well worth your time. We host events on a weekly basis. Please join us in the next one. Till then, take care and stay safe. Thank you.